thank you. And if you don't mind, letting us know in the chat who you are and where you're joining us from. It would also be really nice to know how you know Laura and where you saw this. So that would be really, really lovely. We often, when we've done these for other things, we get such an international audience. Absolutely brilliant. So it's lovely to see where people are joining from. I'll just say where I am, and then
And I'm in the Netherlands.
you
Mm.
are.
It's been a long time now. Feel
Yeah.
feel almost feel partly Dutch now.
Do you?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Partly Dutch.
Partly
I
Dutch.
do. Yeah, when people ask about you, I will say Laura from Amsterdam, but she's English.
Yeah. I don't know.
Or
It's it
Blackpoolian.
like actually we're Sangronian, if you don't mind. Like there's an official term for people from Blackpool, and it's
Is
not
there
Blackpool,
really?
it's not
I did not know
Blackpudlian,
that.
no.
Blackpoolian.
Because we're grown on the sands, right? Or something
Oh,
like that.
okay.
So
Okay, I've
it's
got
all
you.
very romantic.
Yeah, romantic isn't a word I'd use with Blackpool, to be honest.
You just don't know it like I do.
Fantastic. Oh, welcome, Hannah. Hannah Gordon from the Lake District. Oh, you met
Yay!
Laura on Explain Pain yesterday. So
Yeah,
that's great. I
we
hope that's
started our
going really
teaching
well.
now of
Yeah.
experience.
It's
Yeah.
honestly, Laura, I probably shouldn't say this, but we've had other people wanting to join
Oh,
overnight, even though it started. So
yeah.
Nicola's dealing with that. But
Yeah,
anyway,
that's
welcome.
exciting.
Welcome, Jasmine from
Mm,
Switzerland. And you've seen Laura on
goodness.
the clinical discussion group and you wanted to learn more from her. That's absolutely fantastic. Thank
Wow,
you so
lovely.
much. Matt
Lovely.
Phillips from the South Coast, England. Sports
Hi,
Therapy
Matt.
Association podcast. Hi, Matt. Oh, that's really great. I'm going to check your podcast out. If you want to drop a link to it in the chat, please do. I'm sure other people will be interested too. Been a
Yeah.
Laura fan for years. Oh, that's fantastic. So,
That makes me so uncomfortable.
oh, give up. Stop it. Goodness, you're so humble. Honestly, I just want to share you with the world. Everybody needs to listen. Yeah, do drop a link to your podcast, Matt, if you'd like to,
Yeah.
because then we can check it out and so can other people. We really like to support our followers, and this is the first of a series of these discussions. So it's
Yeah.
going to be really interesting to see where they go. And Mo from Glasgow,
Yeah.
welcome.
And I
You
love
know Laura from Pain Geeks, brilliant.
absolutely. I love a pain geek. We love pain geeks on here. Thank you for being part of that platform and that community. It's just,
Brilliant.
it's mad. It's growing so quickly now. All of us, like this last sort of 6 months,
Mm.
we've had such an influx of members. It's so lovely to
There's
sort of
a
meet new
there's a
people.
Galilo effect, isn't there? That you keep blowing it up and it doesn't seem to do anything for ages and ages and ages, and then just suddenly it goes. And that's how
Yeah,
these
yeah.
things go. It's just the
Yeah, we've
sort of
got
momentum thing.
several hundred people in there now, all dedicated to pain, all trying to
Brilliant.
learn more and read more and support each other and just, be friends. Isn't
Oh,
that
I'm so
nice?
proud of you for what you do with that, I remember
Yeah.
when you were setting that up.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We
Oh,
work really
good.
hard. Christine and I work really hard on that.
I
It
know
is
you
a
do.
mammoth task, and
Yeah.
but we love it. Yeah.
Okay, guys. Oh, thanks, Matt. That's absolutely great. Okay, we're going to kick off
Mhm.
because if anybody knows Laura, we'll probably struggle to fit in what we want to share with you all because she's got so much knowledge. So, okay, let's get going. We have written an introduction so we don't forget what to say because that can happen. Okay, so hello and a very warm welcome to this ACT discussion. My name is Joanna Taylor, and I am Laura's business coach. I've been working with brands like Laura Rathbone.com, Noi Group, Le Pub Scientifique, and Pelvic Pain Matters for more than 20 years, helping them to build their businesses and communicate what they do to their desired audiences. And I am absolutely delighted to be joined today by respected pain educator and my amazing good friend, Laura Rathbone. Welcome, Laura.
Hello,
Hello.
hello.
Okay, so Laura is a pain specialist clinician and a
Mhm.
mentor to healthcare professionals worldwide. She brings a unique perspective, combining cutting edge science with compassionate and inclusive practice. So, Laura, would you tell us a little bit about what you are currently doing professionally?
Yeah, for those who don't know me, I'm a specialist physiotherapist and I work specialized in really chronic and complex pain situations. I'm psychologically informed by acceptance and commitment therapy, and my current clinical role is as a consultant in pain to the OLVG hospital here in Amsterdam. So I work embedded within the pain team here, which is a unique and exciting opportunity as a physiotherapist in the Netherlands. Um, in addition to this, I'm an educator. I'm also part of the teaching faculty with NOI, which is what we've just been talking about. And together with my friend Christine Petridis, I run Pain Geeks. And so Pain Geeks is an international multidisciplinary reading group community, I guess, where we sort of support clinicians to read, not just to read more, but to read deeper and to then have sort of to develop their academic skills so that they can integrate what they're reading. And we always sort of say it's a bit like getting a bit more bang for your buck rather than just like churning through paper after paper after paper. We're actually just really reading quality papers deeply and taking as much as we can out of that, as well as like supporting each other. And we really focus on networking and friendship and in there as well. So that's just a really lovely place. And I've been training people in acceptance and commitment therapy now for about 9 years,
Yeah.
which is just wild. Like, it's so funny when you get like, I don't think I noticed the passage of time that much, but now I'm 40, I'm really like, oh gosh, like I've been doing stuff for like 2 decades.
Wait till you're 50 and then you say, I've been doing this for 20 or more years.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Yeah. So I just love
Okay,
it. Yeah.
lovely. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. 9 years. Wow. I wouldn't have said it was that long, to be honest, but I've done one of Laura's ACT courses and
You were at one of the
my
first, I
I
think.
was, and
Yeah.
do you know, I absolutely loved it. I'm not a clinician, but I did it so I could understand it, so I could help her promote it at the time. And it is awesome. Just as a human being, I remember thinking, just every human being should do this course because it was so good.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're not going to do that today, right
And
now.
I'm
We're going
also
to do
not
that
taking
later.
any of the credit for ACT, right? Like I just like that
No,
saying where you stand on the shoulders of giants, right? ACT is
yeah.
a huge piece of work and sort of psychological development that came, out of the lab of Stephen Hayes and his team, and then has just been taken on by so many other people. And none of
Mm,
like I'm not a researcher. I can't claim any credit for any of this. I just translate it for clinicians and help them integrate it.
yeah, you translate it really well.
Mhm.
Okay, so today's session is designed as an introduction to ACT. So if you've done an ACT course with Laura previously, then this will help to both refresh and reinforce what you've already learned. But
Mhm.
if not and you want to know more about it, then we will be talking about it at the end of this session. So just hang back and you can find out more then. Laura's going to be talking for about 20 minutes, so let's kick off. Um,
That's optimistic.
yeah, we'll give it a go, Laura. Today we're discussing the three foundation skills that every therapist needs before diving deeper into ACT. And by the end, you'll have three areas for you to consider and explore in the development of your own ACT-informed practice. So let's start with what you consider to be the most fundamental skill. What's the first foundation skill that every therapist needs to master when integrating ACT into their practice within the ACT model of therapy?
Yeah, it's the very sexy skill of self-awareness. Like, before we even go into thinking about the other person in the room, I think one of the things that we have to foster as clinicians trying to integrate into acceptance and commitment therapy is to really sort of like embody it as a way of being. Um, and I think this is quite challenge. This is what I found really challenging as a physio because all of my training was about what do I do to somebody else's body
Mm,
and how do I get them to do things with their body. And acceptance and commitment therapy really challenged me to be like, what's my stuff? What's how do I navigate change? How do I understand the difficulty of doing things differently? What's my emotional content in the room, and how do I contain that so that I can focus on the other person? We sometimes jump towards focusing on the other person, but to get there, you also need to contain yourself and know where you end and they begin. And I think self-awareness is one of the things that it's like the hardest thing. Sometimes it's the most uncomfortable thing to cultivate as a clinician. But it's without that, you're going to really struggle to develop a good working, sort of psychologically informed therapeutic
Mhm.
relationship with the person in front of you. So
Yeah.
you're going to have to be quite brave. You're going to have to be able to tap into your empathy. But this sort of sense of rationality in the psychological sense, which is being able to sort of hold your own stuff, not separate to the room because you're in there, but to acknowledge that you're bringing that can also
Mm.
just be really helpful.
Yeah.
Um,
Huge.
so I think that's probably the first, like one of the first skills that I think we need to develop. And that's what we focus on in the course a lot as well, is like, this isn't about what do you think the other person might feel. It's, well, what do you know to be true for yourself going through this process? And does that help you understand what it's like for other
Mhm.
people going through this process?
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Laura. Can you give us an example of what that might look like in a session?
Yeah. So we have this sort of principle in ACT that's called down-with-ness. And I think the way you have to think of this more like a state or a sort of a stance as opposed to what we do. Um, but it's a sense of sort of I'm going to actually quote it because I think it's really nice, and this comes from like ACT core therapeutic competencies. Um, so the ACT therapist speaks to the client from an equal, vulnerable, compassionate, genuine, and sharing point of view, and respects the client's inherent ability to move from unworkable to workable responses. And the reason that we get that is because it's like, okay, in this moment, it might be me sat on this side of the discussion, but in any other moment, I could be on the other side, struggling with something, needing
Mm.
help, not being able to make sense, sort of not understanding or not being able to observe um, how maybe I have more choices, but I don't necessarily have the awareness of that right now in the moment because I'm so overwhelmed with all the stuff. And I think that's it's not necessarily a clinical example, maybe in the strictest sense, but that's what I would use as a way of explaining this in the clinic. Yeah.
Sure. That's what's the main mistake that therapists make when it comes to applying that skill?
Yeah, so down-with-ness sort of emphasizes the idea that you are a human being with your own stuff and that that has value in the therapeutic relationship. And I think what sometimes can happen is we can mistake that as a sort of as permission to then share our own trauma or our own story. And I think
Mm.
there's a real sort of subtle nuance between saying like you have more in common with your patient than you have not in common with them, right? Because you're
Mm.
both humans. Um, and so sometimes it can be really valuable to acknowledge that, like, yes, I can see that you're struggling with this, and I kind of know what that feels like, and to be able to acknowledge that whilst holding your stuff behind your boundary is really key because we're wanting to uh, acknowledge our own vulnerability, our own humanness as a way of opening up the space for the other person to share, not taking up the space uh,
Yeah.
and giving them less. And that's quite a subtle sort of like relationship. It's a subtle balance. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
I remember doing
definitely
some
have
work
got
on
that
that when
wrong.
yeah, I remember doing some work on that in the course, and it makes you think, and that's where it comes back to just being a human, isn't
Mhm.
it? Is that, and like you take it out of the course and into all of your interactions with other humans,
Yeah.
because there is a tendency to sort of put your story in the place to show empathy, isn't there?
But also, like that's to me almost like as I'm saying this, I'm like, oh, isn't this a beautiful standard? But actually, it's almost like an unachievable standard in so many ways as well. Like
Mm.
you're going to bring your stuff, and I think that's what's nice about ACT as well. Is it's not
Mm.
about saying you should always get it right or wrong. It's the process of being able to reflect on how you're handling a situation, and then make choices about what you might try and do next time. And
Mm.
but there's plenty of times where our stuff is too big to contain, and then we also need to be able to acknowledge that, like, actually I'm not able to hold this space so safely for that person right now, or being able to repair, to notice that we might have ruptured by leaking into their therapeutic space, and then being able to repair that. It's
Yeah,
also part
yeah,
of it. Yeah.
yeah. That so. How do you know when you're doing it right versus talking about it?
Yeah. So I think this is the thing that, like, it took me a really long time to let go of this sort of like all or nothing thinking, right or wrong, yes or no.
Mm,
And I think ACT isn't really so concerned with that kind of a question. Like, we're not really asking, are you doing it right? Um, we might be asking, are you ACT consistent? So are you staying inside the ACT model, or are you making a choice to be ACT inconsistent and moving perhaps into a more traditional CBT approach? That's also
mm,
fine, right? We can be flexible with that. But at its heart, ACT is a reflective process, not like a sort of judgmental process. It's asking, how are we doing over time? Are we and how and I guess as clinicians, we're wanting to reflect on whether we are effectively and consistently staying inside the framework. And I'm not sure that that is really a right or wrong situation. But I think you'll find that you are holding that space in a deeper way over time, and you can reflect
yeah.
on that. And it's certainly one of those situations where you can say, yeah, actually I am doing this better. I feel like I'm doing this better than I was before. um
Mm,
yeah, but I'm not
yeah.
sure right or wrong is the right kind of question really here, but I totally get where that comes from, because I think I also was stuck in that as well for a long time.
And you have a sense naturally, don't you, as a human, of thinking, have I done it right, or have I made a mistake? There is a
So
tendency, isn't there?
what people struggle with is ACT is about finding the point of resistance. So when you're doing it
Mm,
right, it's probably full of resistance. If you're comfortably floating through when you're doing it right, right, if you're comfortably floating through your session and you like everything just seems to be going really well,
mm,
everything's flowing, there's no real discomfort, we can also reflect on that and be like, hey, that was a lovely session. But ACT is really thinking about the resistance. It's really trying to find the point of like, oh, I don't want to do that, and sort of stay there. So we should be aware of holding that discomfort.
mm.
And I think this really comes back to my training input as well. Like if we're consistent in ACT, it should feel like it's hard work in the moment, but then you can leave that therapeutic session and walk away because the ongoing work stays with the person that walks out of the room.
So interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. That is really interesting. Okay, thank you. So moving on to the second foundational skill, what is that? And how does it building on the first?
So I think the next sort of and again, these are really personal sort of process skills, but really like being values informed, right? And it's one of the sub processes in the ACT model. And it as a clinician, as an individual, as a person trying to hold this space, I think we also need to cultivate the skill of holding our values as the sort of the guide as to how we make decisions. I think in pain, this really like we sit there quite often. I mean, I certainly feel as a pain care sort of focused therapist, like I'm constantly under pressure to make choices that sometimes might conflict with my values as a person, like as a human
Mm,
in the world, and as a clinician, as a therapist. I think that's quite a regular experience. And so being able to acknowledge that, reflect on that, and hold that, and know what the sort of the loss and the gain is that might come with that. Where's the struggle in that? I think that's a really necessary skill. Um, because it not only does it give you empathy in an experiential way, but when
mm,
you're in the session and it becomes kind of chaotic or it becomes full, we're able to hold our sense of self in that moment, and that is such a nice way of modeling to people.
mm,
There is a way of not getting caught up and going along here, and also it's quite a nice firm anchor for people to co-regulate onto as well.
Mm,
So I think it's
mm,
doing a couple of things there. Yeah.
mm. And how's that different from what most therapists are already doing?
So yeah, I don't know what most therapists are doing, but
Imagine.
um, I know what I certainly struggled with, and I know that we've got evidence that shows. And I was trying to find this morning because I read it a few years ago, so I have to try and find it again. But there was some evidence that showed that physiotherapists, because I think it was focused around physio, have a tendency to defer back to biomedical reasoning or to sort of
Yeah,
like
yeah,
um, yeah, sort of might defer back to sort of traditional approaches when they're
that
feeling
makes
time
sense.
pressured or panicked or when they're met with complexity. And it was a really helpful piece of work that sort of demonstrated that it's not that the clinicians are ideologically opposed to working in a more biopsychosocial way. It's more that the systemic factors put so much pressure on them that it's really hard for them to hold that value in clinic.
Yeah.
And I think that's just really difficult being able to stand up and say that. And I think one of the best examples I can think of with the clinicians I've been working with recently is like timed appointments, time frames around your appointments. Like there is an enormous pressure on clinicians
Yeah.
to squeeze appointment times down. um, and that brings us directly into a conflict with our values because we know we need more time, we know we need more
Mm,
time, we know the patient needs more time, we know that we are more effective when we have more time. But there are certain systemic situations that make it really difficult. And the one I'm thinking about right now in the Netherlands is that we are paid a flat rate for every patient we see, by the insurance companies, which is not a lot of money.
no.
And with the raising sort of issues in society, the sort of like everything's becoming more expensive, you start having to sort of figure out how to get more out of your day. So that's one thing that lots of clinicians in the Netherlands are struggling
Sure.
with. How do I maintain my values and my quality when there's financial insecurity? That's really, really difficult. It's such a great example of that sort of ambivalence of being pulled in two different directions.
Mm.
Um, and I think I remember this so much from my NHS time as well before I was at Input when we had like such an enormous amount of time with patients. But if you've given 30 minutes, but you've got somebody with, really complex chronic pain and trauma and all of those things, you need an hour and a half to 2 hours. And there's
Mm.
such a huge amount of pressure on clinicians to squash everything down. I think this is a great example of where we really have to work on holding our values and understanding that there's struggle on both sides of that, right? If you choose to have longer appointments, you will get the struggle in terms of maybe you've got a little bit more financial insecurity or you've got more conflict with your management or your system. And if you choose to go with the sort of the pressure to shorten your appointment times, and you've got struggle there because now you've got struggle in the moment with the patient and you've got struggle with yourself, with your values. That's really core in ACT, that's where the distress comes. You are going to have more distress when you're at conflict with your own values, than when you are values consistent but you've got struggle. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry, it was the dog. Um,
I'm glad it was your dog and not mine.
these things, life happens, doesn't it? So, um, can you talk us through a sort of clinical example of, what you were talking about just before there about the foundational skill, the value informed part?
Yeah, so if I stick with my own example, then if I'm thinking about time frames,
Yeah.
I mean, this is a really, really tricky thing, but I have struggled with this throughout most of my career of being able to hold a longer time slot for my patients, and I think sometimes being values informed, like I say, it comes with a loss and it comes with a gain, and
Mm.
it's being able to choose which loss and which gain you want. So for me, that's how I
Mm.
would work it. But from a patient perspective, it might be that they are struggling to engage, yeah, when they have pain, the pain um, has come with this rule that they should avoid pain at all costs, in which case they might, choose to go to bed, or they might choose to sit down, or they might choose to disengage from an activity, but actually that activity is really
Mm,
meaningful. Um, and I'm thinking about, a patient of mine who has a young child and wants to be able to play with their child, not even go out of the house, just be able to play with them, and be able
mm,
to make sure that they get their needs met, but pain can be such a barrier. And so then we have to work with, well, there's difficulty on either side. If you choose not to, how does that feel? Well, I feel really
mm,
bad, I feel guilty, I feel awful, all of those things. Okay, and if you choose to, what do you have? Well, I have pain. I say, well, okay, you have pain, but what else do you have? Well, I'm actually doing the thing that I want to do. And so it's not, so when we're talking about ACT, we're not trying to get rid of struggle.
mm.
We're just saying, which struggle are you going to choose, and which
Yeah.
one is more values consistent, which one brings you closer to your sense of identity, and how do
Mm,
we help you to do that in ways that are achievable right now, and tolerable might even be the right word. Yeah.
yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so um, that's great. I'm just a little conscious of time, so we're going to move on to
Mhm.
foundational skill number three,
Numero tres.
and this one that ties it all together.
It's my least favorite. I think we need to be quite methodical. So, like,
Okay.
oh, my little magpie ADHD mind hates this idea of being methodical. Like, but actually, the more methodical I am, the more I avoid model drift. So I stay inside the framework more consistently, which helps my patients over time because we're more able to hold the thread through their therapy process. Um, and the way that I do that is through formulation, and formulation is a psychological skill. It's not assessment, right? So I sometimes describe it as like, it's a bit like assessment is like an upside down triangle. We're trying to
Mm,
find the problem, and we're trying to limit everything, all of the variables, to find out what we're working on. And formulation is like an upside down triangle. We start from the bottom and we're actually trying to build out the model. We're trying to figure out what's going
okay.
on here, um, in a more inclusive way. We're trying, and so formulation helps me keep hold of the whole picture. So, what is it that the person is wanting to work towards? What is that nasty, unpleasant internal thing that they're avoiding? How do they
Mm,
avoid that? So, what's the technique that they do? Is it distraction? Is it joking? Is it, disengagement? Is it disassociation? What's the thing that they're doing in order to get away from that? And it just sort of keeps me on track in a really
yeah.
nice way. But we have to hold it loosely and lightly. It's not an exact truth. It's a sort of it's just a way of containing that person's process. But I think the more
Yeah, that word.
methodical we are, the more we're able to sort of and this is I think this is this if I was like the more we're able to hold that person safely and sort of keep safeguarding our practice.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. Thank you. I bet you make it. I bet nobody that your patients don't know that you're methodical.
I'm not methodical. I'm faking it till I make it.
Yeah, no, no, you will be, but you'll do it in such an amazing way that it'll just seem completely
Right, but it's not
like,
methodical in the session. Like in the session
yeah.
is free flow, right? The session is patient led. I am just following, I'm just holding the container for the person to move through it, and they're providing all the
Mm,
content. Like I'm holding the process and they're providing the content. The methodicalness comes in me being able to label and categorize and write it up. Um,
mm,
Almost outside of that. And again, that's hard for us, especially as physiotherapists and medics. We don't get a huge amount of time for notes and things like that and
yeah.
reflection on our patients. But actually, I think this kind of work, this hybridized style of working, um, you know, requires that because you're not doing physio
Yeah.
anymore because this isn't
Yeah.
really like you're extending your scope
You
in
are.
physiotherapy to be more psychologically informed, to be more explicitly aware of the psychotherapy framework that you're using, and to be able to um, yeah, integrate that into how you make
Mm,
choices as a therapist. You're doing physio plus now, so we need that little bit of extra reflection time, and I think that is enormously challenging for clinicians right now.
mm.
Yeah.
I agree. So, self-awareness, values informed, methodical.
Yeah.
How do these three skills work together in practice?
Well, I think what they do when you bring all these things together, the thing that I think we grow from the most is that it makes our practice more sustainable. Um, it provides us with a more like a more explicit or a more explicit container for what we're doing in
Mm,
clinic. And I speak as a physiotherapist, right? Because I think we have a lot of container leakage. Like we're not quite sure what we are and what we're doing and what processes we're working on, especially in pain. But I find that ACT is quite a firm container for my practice, and that allows me to onboard and offboard the patient in between sessions. I can just be like, okay,
mm,
yeah, I'm here with this person now, and this is what we're doing, and then that person goes away. And yeah, I've still been able to work in all the complex, deep emotional stuff. I don't need to sort of close that down in order to protect myself. I can open it up and still have a sustainable practice. And I think that's
mm.
really key when we're working as biopsychosocial clinicians now. We to just be biopsychosocial is really hard when you've not been trained how to hold all of that deep stuff, that hard stuff, the struggle, the distress, the conflict, the resistance, um, well, we can tend to
Mm,
take that on as individuals, and that affects our practice because then we can't go into the next patient as open because we are already full of the one before.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I couldn't agree more. So, if someone was to remember one thing from what you've talked about today, what would you hope that to be?
Mm. So I think the thing that I say most often is ACT isn't something that we do to people. It's like it's a space we hold for people to explore. And it's hard. It's exposure, right? And it's not exposure to an activity. It's exposure to the self as you're doing those activities.
Mm,
And so we're holding that space and we need to be right there with them. So I think if I that's what I think I would like people to remember as they if they came out of this is that it's not
yeah,
something you do to people. It's something we hold as a in that therapeutic relationship.
yeah, that's special. So, these three foundational skills
Mhm.
that we've talked about today, but I imagine there's so much more. And well, I know there is because I've done the ACT course.
Yeah.
So, what happens when people actually master these skills? How does it change them, their practice, shall I say?
Um, when they actually master these skills, I think it allows you, I think when you feel like you're able to mastery is such a wonderful word. I've got all distracted on the word mastery because it's so beautiful because I think that is just such an ongoing process. Like the idea of
Yeah,
mastering versus being in the process of mastery, I think is really important. Because I don't know if it's like even I mean, I've been working in an ACT model now for about 12, maybe 13 years. And one of the things I love most is going to a supervisor and like just having that mirror back to me that there are still places for
so
me to keep
much.
growing in ACT. There's
Yeah,
still ways that I can keep exploring this model, but also like the theory, the psychological theory and the philosophy that underpins it. Like there's a lot of growth space in there.
mm,
Um, but I think what I see from the clinicians that I work with and the feedback I get from them sort of matches my own is it's harder in some ways, but I enjoy my job more. Like
yeah,
I love my job more because I'm so much more able to connect. I'm so much more able to hold this space. It allows for more creativity. It's more flexible. It feels like you're holding a much more meaningful experiential place for the person in front of you. And that is exactly why most of us got into healthcare, right? Like you don't
right,
get into healthcare because you're caught up in your own stuff. You get into healthcare because you have this urge, this calling to support other people with their things. And so I think the joy of being ACT informed is that it gives me so much permission to apply my knowledge and my skills and my background in a very inside what
mm,
what the other person says is meaningful, and then I get to learn about all this other stuff that I've never done before, like
yeah,
I get to really for a moment just live inside that other person's world and
Yeah.
help them to enrich it and grow it and expand it and connect with it, and feel empowered in the world again. And I think for me it's the joy, it is the joy of working
The
in pain.
joy. Yeah.
Yeah.
The joy. The yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. You see that. So if we're going to wrap up for today now. So if you
Mm.
do want to hear just a little bit more about Laura's about the course, we're going to just be talking for 2 or 3 minutes.
Hmm.
And for anybody that is interested in extending this journey
Hmm.
with Laura, she has just set a date for her next ACT course, which is going to
Yeah.
start on February the 3rd, 2026. So it's a little way off, but
Yeah.
you just take a bit of planning.
It does. And I think that's important for people to know, right? This is not it like learning to become ACT informed is going to take a lot of time and energy because it's a reflective process. It's quite
Mm,
an intense self-exploration as much as it is an intense exploration of your practice as well. And that's why I like to split it up over. It's always been an online digital course over 4 weeks. That was how it was originally designed, like 9 years ago.
yeah,
Like, because you need to grow alongside it, right? And that's
mm,
exactly what this course is all. That's why I designed it like that. So that because
mm,
I've been on like ACT intense courses over a weekend, and like as a non-psychologically trained clinician, there's so much jargon involved in there.
mm.
It takes time to
Yeah,
to really sort of like bring in ACT to your sort of like the way you make decisions and the way you sort of formulate what's going on. So it's over 4 weeks for that reason.
yeah.
And
The word journey very much explains it, doesn't it? Because you do go on a journey and you can't do that in 2 days. It's just
no.
not, it's not
And
the
it's
same.
so funny because like I still like I think some of the friendships that have been made between people on the course and even like between me and the course participants are
Yeah,
still strong, like still there, even
yeah,
years down the line.
yeah,
Because it is some you do bond in the vulnerability of being like, oh, this is hard, this is a bigger job,
yeah.
and isn't that amazing? But isn't it scary as well? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the course that I was on just met some really lovely people who I still remember, to this
Yeah.
day. We're still in touch, which is absolutely amazing because that was years ago. So
Yeah.
anyway, so we've dropped the links.
Yes.
If you this session has been recorded, so if you do want to watch the recording of the session, you can find it on Laura's YouTube channel. The
Hmm.
link is in the chat. And if you want to check out the upcoming ACT course that she's got in February, the link is in the chat also, and you can also find more details. That just takes you through to laurarathbone.com, which is
Hmm.
her website. So go and check it out on there. And if you fancy joining her in February, I'm sure she'd be absolutely delighted to have you on the
Would.
next cohort. Well,
Yeah.
thank you, Laura.
Thank
Um,
you for guiding us through this conversation.
I don't know where the time goes when we get on screen together, but I literally hang off your every word. So I love it. And I'm sure everybody has enjoyed it. So we thank you so much for sharing. And there will be another one of these in, I don't know, 3 weeks' time, I think, something like
Yep.
that. So keep your
Yep.
eyes open, folks, and we will let you know about the next one. And we hope that you enjoy the rest of your day. So take care,
Yay.
everyone, and we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot.
Bye.